Hey, welcome to Lab, the podcast. This is a fun episode for me. I'm excited to share some time with my friend and co-host of the
Yes.
Wayfarer podcast, Kathia Guzman. Kathia is a daughter, sister, artist, writer, and coffee enthusiast, which I appreciate. She's got a passion for people, and that really does shine through everything that you do. She is a proud Tampa native, which is a rare thing to meet somebody who's born and raised in Tampa, and a recent graduate of University of South Florida. She's actively working in advertising and PR with networking leads, hosted Conversations with Katia, co-hosts the Wayfarer podcast, and uses storytelling and honest dialogue to connect with others. Her heart's mission is to help people embrace and walk confidently in the beautiful one-of-a-kind light that's placed inside of them.
Woo!
All of that.
That's a long
Yeah.
one.
That's great.
Thank you for having me, Zach. I really am excited. Lab the podcast has been honestly probably the thing that connected us in the first place all those years ago
Yeah.
because I had gone to some initiatives that V3 was doing for young adults. I went to the live podcast recordings. And I've just always been fascinated by everything you've done. And the fact that our journey has come this far is the beauty of God's mystery. I mean, I just absolutely adore you and Cammie, Zach's wife,
Yes.
and everything that V3 does. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, we feel the same way about the whole Guzman family. It was a really cool thing to get to know your dad years and years ago, and then your whole family, and then along the way, I was saying that we wanted to assemble a cast for the Wayfarer podcast. And in my mind, I'm always working on stuff like underground for years, thinking about things. And I had this ideal picture of a cast, and there was a particular cast member that I had in mind, and I didn't know who they were, but I just knew that they had to have the particular set of qualities and skills. And when I met you, I told your dad, actually, I was like, there's an opportunity I want to throw her way. So that was a natural fit. But you became a part of the cast, but you're really more like a part of the V3 family. So it's super fun.
It's great. I mean, like I said, it's crazy. I think sometimes you meet people and it's like how you have chemistry and like romantic relationships. I think there's like friend chem and like I just had friend chem with absolutely everyone in V3. So it's great. Again, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It'll be
Well,
fun.
thank you for the coffee from Leeds, by the way.
Oh,
That was
of
super good.
course.
We're drinking Leeds coffee out of Buddy Brew mugs, but it's like that we can do that.
Hey,
Yeah.
no hate to anyone. This is my love language. I love being able to bring coffee. I don't have much, but I do have coffee. So
Coffee's so good.
as long as I can bring that.
You have
Cheers.
cheers. You have a Buddy Brew mug. This is
Yes.
actually a Red Hills Market mug. So for all the Oregon people, Red Hills Market's a pretty special place. If you ever find your way out to Red Hills Market or to Oregon in wine country, you got to go to Red Hills.
Is it a
Market.
vineyard?
It's nested at the bottom of all the vineyards in the wine country area of Oregon. And the owner has built this incredibly beautiful little spot that's right at the base of wine country. So everybody goes there for lunch, for coffee. It's a beautiful magic place.
You need to do an immersive experience for V3 over there.
100%. Yeah.
I would be the first one to sign up for that. Are you kidding
go.
me?
Yeah.
Ugh.
See, this is what will happen. This is why it's so fun. We could just make something right now on the podcast. I want to talk about the Wayfarer podcast. So we'll get into that because we just finished up season 2. We did this whole initiative with the Wayfarer podcast. And part of that was really trying to extend a hand to a young generation that really either has left the church or is trying to find their way back to the church or starting to open up to faith in a way that America has not seen. There's a big opening up of young people who are desiring a really rich and rigorous faith. And you, I think, embody that journey to a deep-rooted faith in a really beautiful way. And I want to talk about what that's like right now for young people, because some people imagine what that's like, but you're living it. So we'll talk about both of those things. But you are a Tampa native, born and raised in Tampa. Tell me what Tampa was like 15 years ago, right? Like, take us back 15 years ago. Talk about what was Tampa like 15 years ago, and what's the most different thing about it today in comparison?
I think that Tampa has always had this sense of like connectiveness where 15 years ago, if you went anywhere, the mall, the grocery store, anything, you would know at least like 5 people there. Like it's a big city, but it's a small big city. And if you don't know someone, they know someone that you know. And it's like that sort of concept. And I think that over the years, we've gotten really big. And in the past year since COVID, or past, that's like 5 years, sorry. Time goes by in a flash.
Time goes by quick. Yeah.
But ever since COVID, so many people moved to Tampa. And it's hard because we've lost a little bit of that connectiveness because you have people from different states moving down here, people from Oregon coming down here.
Sorry.
I'm just kidding. Yeah. But like we've definitely lost that close touch to each other. But I will say Tampa has always had a charm to it that I absolutely adore. I don't really see myself leaving Tampa unless God calls me somewhere else, but I absolutely love it. I plan on raising my family here. I plan on building the business here. There's a lot of opportunity for growth. I think the soil here is very rich, where if you plant your family, there's amazing schools. There's a lot of opportunities for kids to get involved. There's beautiful communities and small restaurants and businesses. And if you plan on building a business here, we have like downtown Tampa that there's these skyscrapers and startups and so many opportunities. I don't see why anyone would leave, honestly.
It's Riley's never leaving. I mean, he says it all the time.
I know.
Like another born and raised Tampa person. And proudly.
We're proud. We should run for mayor together.
That's right. Like co-mayor.
Guys, actually, this isn't a Kathia podcast. This is a podcast about Tampa.
That's right.
This is the promo.
It's the Tampa podcast. Well, it is. I love how you say it's a good place to grow and the dirt is good. When we came, we actually, where Red Hills Market is, one little town over is Newberg, Oregon. And their motto is a good place to grow. And they talk about that, like dirt and the rich soil. And, that's a very agriculture part of the world. But Tampa feels like that. We experienced that. Our kids were young when they came here and they have put roots down. We've met some of the most incredible people in Tampa. So it really is a special, special place. What part of Tampa has changed the most from 15 years ago? I mean, there's South Tampa, there's Tampa Heights, there's the downtown area, West Tampa. If you can point to an area of Tampa, say 15 years ago, it did not look like that. What would it be?
Oh, literally Hyde Park area, Seminole Heights. You couldn't even touch Seminole Heights without like getting like a police escort or something. Like it was dangerous. But now they have these quaint, sweet little bakeries you can walk to, and you see families running up and down the streets, and it's just great. It's beautiful. Hyde Park is another one where there's such unique restaurants there now. They're building like Nike. Well, Nike's there, and now they're going to be bringing all these big time boutiques there too. Definitely the Hyde Park and Seminole Heights area. But I will say they've done a really good job at keeping, like I said a little earlier, that Tampa charm, where small. Seminole Heights, I don't think has lost its identity still. I mean, it's just a little bit of a safer place for families to live, but still same identity, the beautiful Tampa bungalows. Hyde Park, although it's becoming a little ritzier, you still have like the beautiful plaza original structure to it, which I'm glad that they haven't taken that out. I'm glad that they haven't taken away our identity.
Yeah.
Glad that stayed true to it.
Yeah. Well, no, and it still feels like a small town. It's
does.
a small, big town.
I know, especially like in you coming a little later.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I'm born and raised here. Like all 23 years have been here. Whereas it's been like 10 years for you?
9. This summer will be 9 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Can you believe that? Almost a decade.
I know.
That's
and the
crazy.
fact that you like it. So that's a good sign.
Hey, that's no small thing. Because it was hard. I did not love it for 3 years. It was too hot, too flat, too the same. Like the sun never stops shining, which is great. But when you're like, you kind of have a natural seasonal life in your inner life, which is kind of more my vibe. It's hard to always feel like you're in summer. That was a different thing for me.
Oregon, that's a complete, like I've never been to Oregon, but I've heard that the terrain isn't even comparable.
Oh, just to walk out and see rolling hills is kind of what we were around. And back to Red Hills Market, you could sit with a warm jacket on and have a fire going and a cup of coffee and like
So
feel
nice.
the fall air, and that stuff is just magic. So it
It
took a while
is.
for me to fall in love with the place. The people I fell in love with
Mhm.
right away. Like Tampa's got incredible people, but the place, it took a longer time, but it feels like home now. So
Mm.
I want to give you a second to talk about Leeds, because you
Yeah.
graduated USF and now you are standing up a PR and marketing company, but you also are helping out all the things on Leeds side. So give us just a glimpse of a day in the life, right? Like
Oh.
you are, after graduation, now running a company, standing something up in an entrepreneurial effort. So say a little bit about that, and then we'll kind of move towards the faith conversation that I think has
Mhm.
been a big part of your life for a long time.
Yeah. So leads, that's like the easiest conversation. That's my day in, day out. My day starts there, it ends there. It's just a beautiful little place. We have obviously coffee and food. It's like a regular coffee shop, but I think what you mentioned about Tampa, the people really make the place. Leeds is a place of just like warmth and goodness. And if you walk in, you'll walk out with at least like 5 friends. Everyone's always down to have a conversation. And I think that's such a lost art. The fact that people will connect with you and not have a problem with that. And the fact that we've created this place that fosters that warmth and that special humanness of just talking and sharing stories. It's something that's really hard in the age of technology, where it's always like, hey, how's it going? I saw your Instagram. I thought it looked really cool. Whereas, like, you can actually have that kind of connection in real life at the coffee shop. And um, more into that, we host a lot of different events there that foster and promote some more of that connection, whether it's on a personal or professional angle. So we host those in the coffee shop, and we collaborate with different groups in Tampa. We actually just had Zach for a book event a couple weeks ago,
That was so fun.
and that was so much fun. We had Wendy Kiefer there
Yep.
too.
Kiefer.
Kiefer. Don't listen,
Yeah.
Wendy. And it was so fun. Just lots of it attracts really great people. And it's my joke a lot of the time is I don't really advertise it as a Christian or a belief place based place. Just because we're welcome to all. We don't close off anybody. But most of the people there at the book event, one of the authors was like, raise your hand if you're a believer. Everybody
Yeah,
raised their
it was
hand.
wild.
It's just like, I think when you have a certain kind of person and you're creating a certain kind of space, it invites a certain kind of person. And so, yeah, Leeds is the heart of my soul. And I mean, I could keep going into that if you let me, but um, I've just in short too. I mean, I did graduate USF just in May, but I've been working there since I was a freshman in college because I started college during COVID. So I was not in person for classes. I literally had nothing to do. I was aimless. I was just like, what is the purpose? Like, what are we doing? And my dad was like, okay, I have an opportunity for you because you obviously aren't really doing much that's fulfilling you right now. And so I literally started working in social media in 2020. And so although I now am full time at in the business and stuff, I've been working that and learning and messing up a lot ever since I was 18. So it's been a fun journey in growing with leads, and I'm excited to see where it goes. I mean, hope it goes well.
Yeah.
But
No, it will. It's super cool.
yeah.
And I've been messing up since way before I was 18. I'm still on that journey. So yeah,
Yeah.
that is, we share that in common. Yeah. This podcast, the whole aim originally was we just want to celebrate the life and beauty of the gospel in the
Mhm.
world, because it's an embodied thing. And we talk about the gospel is not an idea, it's a reality, right? It's the reality that God exists and that he's for his creation. He loves his creation. And we know the beauty of the gospel. When it's inhabited, you see it.
Mhm.
And the Guzman family, really, that's one of those places where I can put a frame around the Guzman family and say that the life and beauty of the gospel is just like bubbling up, springing up from your whole family and everything that you're doing, right? Whether it's work in justice or it's work on the community side, that's deeply rooted and coming from your family. What was it
Thank you.
like growing up a Guzman in that? Was faith at the center of your family explicitly, or was it kind of just like in the background, it's in our DNA?
Mm. So in my family, although it looks perfect on the front end of everything, we are a regular family. I mean, with that, we're not perfect, but my parents did a really good job in really fostering and making sure that we knew that Christ was in the center of everything that we're doing. And so even as far as I can remember, my mom would take us to Stations of the Cross on like weekdays when my dad was at work and we weren't in school yet. And I went to Catholic school my whole life. So that was always something that was in my vision, always heard about that. So I always knew that I could lead on that when I was in a moment of struggle and a moment of worry. Um, and yeah, it was always the center. I can say that for sure. Always, going to church on Sunday. We, I don't know. I was a cradle Catholic, so did all the sacraments. They made sure that I got those. Even when I wasn't at Catholic school for a moment, like we did the Sunday school. So they always made sure to feed our mind. And if not, it was Veggie Tales. I don't know, or Spirit of Femme. My mom and dad definitely made sure that we were always surrounded by that. But I will say, I didn't necessarily claim my faith and make it what it is now until I was probably like a junior or sophomore in college. And it was a moment of going into the real world, being in my sorority, being at USF, a very massive school, dealing with lots of different personalities, lots of different viewpoints. And I loved learning about all of them. And I think that's something that I think a lot of Christians that I was around that it was hard for me to relate to because I loved learning about other people's viewpoints and perspectives and where they came from and their religion. And I thought it was beautiful. But at the same time, coming from a place where I was always surrounded by other Catholics or other Christians, it was definitely a wake up call. And I would like, oh, let me go and learn about this thing and let me go to their church or let me try this thing and just to see it and not necessarily thinking like I want to convert, but just looking at how, and even having friends that were atheists and didn't believe in anything and being just surrounded by such an immersed group of people, I was like, wow, just kind of amazed by that. And when in college, I was again a junior and I was going out with all these people. I was hanging out with them. I was partaking socially and in school. And I think in that there were, with the good of learning about all of the beauty that comes with culture, there was a lot of like just a lot of hurt that a lot of people were dealing with. And in turn, they were being put in a lot of weird situations that I would follow along with, not knowing, and just simply doing what the college thing was, like going to frat parties and going to football games and being surrounded by drinking and being surrounded by drugs and things that were going on behind the scenes that I necessarily wasn't partaking in, but it was happening right in front of me. And I think that I was grappling a lot with, I simply can't relate to that. Like, I don't want that. My vision was never, I want to do that. Like, I had a longer goal there. And I think because of the hurt I was talking about, a lot of people couldn't necessarily see past the frat party and the social hierarchy and things that were cool and the posts and making sure everyone knew that they got a big or a little in their sorority. And so it was a very secular, if you will. And so one day I talked about it on the Wayfarer podcast. So if you're coming from the Wayfarer podcast, you probably are familiar with my story. But I remember going to mass. It wasn't mass at this point because there was nothing going on in the church. It was just the chapel and it was pitch black. And I think I had come from like a party or something, like a day party, which is kind of ironic. Coming all sweaty and stuff, but I just had enough and I needed a moment of just silence and of comfort. And I remember walking into the chapel and just looking up at this massive cross of like Jesus hanging there, like exhausted and blood and just a lot of emotion, like the ultimate sacrifice. And I was looking up and thinking about all of the things I was encountering and all of the just confusion of like, this isn't what I'm living for. And I remember in that moment thinking like, that's not the point. Like, this is the point. And I'm kind of done with all of that. I'm refocusing, I'm re-engaging, and I don't care. It's like, and that's a very scary thing to do as a junior college girl who's in a sorority, because all you want to do is be like everyone else. Like, you want to fit in, you want to be cool. And I think in that moment, the scariest thing for me was thinking I might lose a lot of friends, and I did lose a lot of friends in that moment, because I decided like I want to walk my own walk right now. And I don't necessarily know a lot of people doing that. And luckily enough, I did meet Zach maybe a month after that moment. And God, he really does have a great way of feeding you the tools you need in a certain moment. And you guys were definitely that, because although I had like Catholic community and stuff, I think that it was hard for me to find a good, young, cool community that I was like, I want to be like that. And I think when you join these youth groups, you want to look at the leader and say like, I want to be just like that person. And so Zach and Cammie come up at with the initiative, what was it called? The Future Initiative.
Yeah.
And Zach comes up and he just, with his hands and like super passionate and talking about these super deep and like long lasting concepts. I was like, oh, this is the thing my soul was thirsting for. Like, I needed this. Like, to keep me going, to remind me what I'm doing. And so not soon after that, I started my own Bible study. Like, girls saw that and they were like, yes, like that's exactly what I want to be in. And lots of like-mindedness going on there too. So I just totally went off on a tangent. You asked me you asked me about college?
Yeah, growing up
in Tampa and Guzman, and
no, I love it. Thank you for being willing to share. Like, that's a fast glimpse of those chapters of your story. Yeah. But you said so much in there that's so rich, I think, for everybody listening, like whether we're parents or young people right in the middle of that, or we're watching from a church perspective, like how can the church participate? Everything you just described, I think, is why I was so excited to have this conversation, because you're literally living it in a really great city, right? So Tampa's not every city. It's not LA. It's not New York. It's not Portland. And it's certainly not a small town, but it has this cross section of all of it. But what's true, and I think what you found at USF is, first, you grew up in a family that constructed a ship, let's say, of faith, knowing that you were going to hit that water and it moves fast. Like, the cultural current is pretty fast, right? And you get into that, and your faith, was holding you, even though necessarily you maybe weren't explicitly holding on to your faith right away. Your parents had done a good job of putting something into your life that would hold you fast. And I think that's a phenomenal gift, right? Like, if you're a parent listening to this, just pay attention, because that's what, when we say like, instruct your kids in the way they should go, train them up in the way they should go, and they're not going to depart from it. It doesn't mean they're not going to get in that cultural current and get wet, and it's going to be fast, and it's going to be a lot of pressure. But in the midst of it, your faith did hold you as you were going. And second point that I love, I'm a huge advocate and fan of the church. And I love the fact that there was a church that was open, that had a cross in it, that allowed a young person to come into it and to find a bit of quiet and turn their vision up. Like, that's the stuff. Yeah. And more now today, like, we don't need less churches, or we don't need to shutter churches, and we don't need to think about our churches and transforming them into every other thing. They need to be churches, because we need those other spaces, those places that when you are done and God is pulling you and wooing you, that you say, you know what, I'm going to go find myself in an empty church and pray. That's a tremendous gift. And you can walk into any great city today and go find a church. Yeah. And the churches who deeply understand this and embody it, you can walk up and the doors will be open.
Oh, yeah.
So that's just a shout out to the church, right? Like we should not be battening down the hatches and taking a posture that says, don't be open. We should be thinking through, how do we keep that thing open?
Mm-hmm.
And then for us, obviously the beauty of the church, what you just described, you should be able to walk in there, and if the sermons aren't being preached, everything about that building is preaching. And
It's
that's what
speaking.
happens when you have a cross up at the center of that, and it draws your vision up, and Christ is there and the vision is Jesus. God's able to, that thing is preaching. We just talked
Yeah.
to this incredible sculptor who said that's the power of his sculptures, is that you make them once and they preach forever.
Oh, yeah.
So good.
Oh, yeah.
But I love that. You had a moment then, though, that your faith became your own. And you said, I am going to choose to walk in this way.
Mm-hmm.
I've watched you put your faith into practice. And not everybody does that. It stays at a head level, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you have chosen to say, no, I'm going to practice my faith. And even through the Lenten season, I watched you take your faith seriously. Why was that so important to you to not just say, I'm going to make a commitment at a head level, but why is it important to you to like practice your faith with the regular ways that you practice your faith?
Yeah. So this is a funny answer, but relationships have always fascinated me. I think that's something that God definitely placed in my heart the minute I was born. Relationships and connectedness with people, where when I was younger, I really placed a lot of my worth in others' opinions. So, like, when I was a little girl and I didn't necessarily look like a lot of the other little girls in my class, like, that would hurt me. And I was like, I just want to feel connected. I want to feel like I want to feel with you guys. I don't understand why I can't. And I feel so detached from that. And then, even in the adult perspective, like relationship with business people, with friends, with romantic partners. Like, I feel like relationships and the way that we walk through them has always just been something that fascinates me. And so when it comes to my relationship with God, I think that in the practical stance, that's the first relationship that I need to pin down, understand through and through, because that's the one relationship that will never disappoint me. And I think that anybody has encountered this, where you place full trust in somebody, whether it's a partner or a friend or a business partner, and they just completely do something that throws you off guard. Because it happens. We're not perfect. I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect. And so when it comes to my faith, I think practicing prayer, going to mass, getting involved in the mass and in church and doing things, it helps me grow closer to him, offer something of my life to him in and not in like a distant way. I think that it's also just it's a way of me learning who he is, because I think a lot of times I think everyone prays differently too. Like, I've talked to some friends who will tell me, like, God told me walk 5 steps forward. And I'm like, God's never talked to me like that. I've never heard his voice in my head say something to me. But it's like, I think when I'm in a moment, and it's funny because at the beginning of this podcast, I felt it. It's like God comes to me in feeling, and I feel it like come from my heart, and it like sprinkles out to the entirety of my body, to the tips of my fingers. And whenever I'm doing something and I feel that, I'm like, oh, this is good. Like, he's here. And then I keep doing it. And so, yeah, I think that in a practical stance, why I practice my faith is simply because God is good all the time, and anything that God's involved with, it's going to be good. I mean, no matter the challenge that comes with it, work can be crazy. Before this podcast, I was just talking about the challenges that come with that in the relationship aspect of it. There's a lot of disappointment that comes from that. And just having God in the center, knowing like he's steering me here. And if anything, I'm dealing with this person because they're hurting in a certain way, and I need to be there to help them at the Christ perspective. And so I think that just it's honestly just living for his greater glory and holding his hand, because I'm frail, I'm weak, I have imperfections, I mess up all the time. But if I'm walking with a perfectly perfect being by my side, like no matter what, in his hands in it, it's going to be good. So that's my long short answer. I can't give like a simple answer. That's so sorry.
No, that's not why. That's why I love this podcast in particular. Like, again, a long form podcast isn't unusual by any means now. I'm Zach Elliott, Executive Director of VUVIVO, and we exist to express the life and beauty of the gospel in the world. Together with our partners, we are wondrously revealing Christianity and inviting people to know God personally. Our team accomplishes that work faithfully through art, literature, music, content, and immersive experiences. And right now, there's a tremendous opportunity to lead with beauty in holding out the hope of the gospel. And I want to invite you to partner with us in that important work. Go to vuvivo.com/support to partner with us to express the life and beauty of the gospel. But I think making space for people and relationships, there's a lot of people who know you from Tampa. There's a lot of people who know you from the Wayfarer podcast and other things that we've done. But to sit down and have coffee and go, oh, wow, that's Kathia. And there's some story there that I would have never known. So thank you for sharing not just short answers, but opening up like that. And it gives us an opportunity to explore some of these things too, that I think are really cool. Because from an outside perspective, you may not even know it, but intuitively, you are on to the deeper and wiser things, and you're kind of just intuitively making these decisions. I think that God is leading you in this way, right? He led you to that church. He led you, like he's been at work through all of these steps, and he's got his reasons for that. Number one, he loves you and he made you for himself. But there's other things that'll unfold that you can't see right now. But what I love is that you're describing a way of knowing God that isn't just like we put so much stock in knowing the right answers about things. But you just said like, hey, I'm weak. I'm easily tossed this way or that way. I'm up, I'm down. That's the human experience. And one of the beautiful things about our life of faith together is that we get to practice our faith. We get to pray together. We get to attend Mass together or attend a church service together, break bread, have communion, worship together, hear the scriptures read to us, unpacked to us, wrestle with that together. That is binding ourselves to the reality that God exists and that he is who he says he is. And so people say, well, I'm a spiritual person, but not a religious person. Well, okay, then you're just kind of a wind blown everywhere.
Yeah.
But you are saying, no, I am a person of Christian faith. So I'm binding my life to Christ. And I do it, yes, with my head, with my faith at my intellectual level, but it's more than that. I am walking in a way. And that's a beautifully wise thing. So however you were led into that, keep modeling that. I think that's why those other younger girls are following you. So like you mentioned, right? We look for people who say, I'm going to follow them because they're following him.
Yeah.
And we know how to see it. We know who they are when we see them, right?
Yeah.
So
It's
well
beautiful.
done. And that part of the Wayfarer podcast was to try to recover that reality that our faith isn't just an idea in our head that's like an exchange or a transaction, but it's literally a journey. It's a pilgrimage. It's a walk from here until we see God face to face. And the church in America hasn't necessarily had a thick conversation about that being the way of faith. That's what we wanted to do as the Wayfarer cast. And how did those conversations impact you just personally? What was the impact like of going through that process for a couple seasons together?
Immensely. I will say in my story, when I've decided at the church, like, okay, I'm going to walk and by myself. Like, I don't necessarily know a lot of people who are walking my walk as a junior in college, but I will say the minute that I did find community, the people that were like-minded, that were walking my walk, it makes it so much easier because you don't feel crazy. I think a lot of times if you're walking a certain way and everyone's walking the other way, you're like, am I doing the wrong thing? Like,
Sure.
You question yourself a lot. And so on the Wayfarer podcast, it was honestly such a God spoken thing, because a lot of the times we would talk about conversations that would hit directly in what I was dealing with at that moment. For instance, I mean, I think one of the heavier topics that hit me personally was malaise. And I think Riley, another co-host who's sitting behind the camera, would relate to that. We all just really felt that one, because there's a lot of terms on the Wayfarer podcast that aren't talked about in real life, in day-to-day life, in popular Christian culture or in pop culture in general, like that we don't know what it means. We don't know what this feeling is. We can't put a word to it. We don't know how to grapple it. So malaise was one of those that it's a feeling that it's just this like in between unsettledness. I need to do more. I need to go out. I need to cold plunge in the morning and run at night and do all these crazy things because I'm not feeling fulfilled in this way. And I think a lot of people feel that one specifically, where and then at the podcast, we gave a term, definition. This is how we walk forward in that together as a friend group, as a family in Christ. And so I think that the Wayfarer podcast specifically was very nurturing in making you not feel crazy for what you're feeling, helping you understand what to do with that, and walk forward with people who have felt exactly what you're feeling. So I loved the Wayfarer. I love the Wayfarer podcast for that reason.
That's so well said too, that like the landscape that we travel doesn't change, and it hasn't. Like the things we face in this world have not changed, right? There's temptation, there's malaise, there's doubt, there's lust and fear and all these things. That's the human experience.
Yeah.
And we don't have to come up with new strategies necessarily. We can find an ancient way, an old path, and find rest for our souls, walk in it. And you all modeled that in a really, really beautiful way. And I think even hearing that stuck, right? You now have language for that.
Yeah.
So you can navigate that terrain on your own, and someday in your marriage and with your kids and with your friends and your business. And those things will serve you over the long course. And I think it's a beautiful, beautiful example of how, I mean, it was 2 seasons together. So we spent a lot of time together, but we didn't have 10 years of working through this. And it wasn't seminary. It was just finding these ways to have good, rich conversation about things that matter and are meaningful about the Christian faith. So
it was a very special space. I think that like it was a point of my week that I knew I could leave all, social barriers, put them down, be real, be honest with other people who were also being real and honest. And it was just a very special space. I think that time of my life will always be very special to me. And I love it. It's an art. Like the podcast itself was art and is art. And it's something that I can even look back on from time to time and listen in and almost have like a warm feeling. I did that the other day because when we closed off the second season, I was like, let me just listen to like the first season, like a random episode. And I was at the office and I had someone walk up to me like, why are you cracking up right now? I'm like, I'm just listening to an old episode. Like it's such a warm space where you can laugh, you can feel depth, you can relate, you can feel on it. It's just such good conversation. And that's my favorite part about podcasting in general, because the work you're doing here really, it stays where even my children one day could listen in and be like, oh, what was mom feeling at 22 when she was walking through that? And that's going to be a crazy feeling.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I listened to recordings, right in the 60s and 70s, there was audio recording of people who were teachers that I respected, that I was looking back to. And it's a pretty significant treasure to listen to people have these conversations and then watch their life. And
It's like, imagine like have you ever seen those trends on Instagram or TikTok that they're like, I found this antique writing from World War I or something like that. And it's like a love letter. And you feel so much emotion just reading that letter, to think someone hand wrote that. And there's so much humanness in that handwritten letter. But imagine this technology is such a gift. I mean, with technology, there's a lot of bad that comes, but
Sure.
this is a gift. The fact that we're capsuling this very real human 2025 feeling, the humans will be feeling this in 3025,
Yep.
you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm curious what some of those feelings are for, I think a lot of people listening, we think about your space in life. You're 23, right?
Mm-hmm.
So 23, out of college, starting career, doing all the things in a city. And we assume, right, that there's certain pressures or things that you're facing or certain questions that you're asking. And I don't know if we're always right about those. So as you think about like the 22 to 26-year-old experience right now, what do you think, what are some of the questions that people are asking that they really do, they want to find an answer for these things? What are some of the things people are either asking or facing that are really important that maybe would surprise us?
I feel like the question of seasons is something that I hear a lot. Whether it's like a 26-year-old girl who's like, I just haven't met the person I'm meant to be with, or and she's working full time and she's like, but I haven't fulfilled that relationship part of my life, or a 22-year-old who is totally fine in all departments but has no clue what they want to do with their career, whether it be like in the corporate world or just within themselves. So um, I think that that's something I've questioned a lot too, because where I've flourished in so many ways and I'm so grateful God has answered so many of my prayers, the relationship one is very difficult because um, that's a season in of itself. But I think the beauty of relationship with God and practicing your faith on a daily basis, like God's placing you in a certain place for a reason, for a specific purpose. And whether you're the 26-year-old single girl or you're the 22-year-old, no idea what career is going to be girl or boy, um, you have to be in that season. So that's something that I think has been on my mind in
Mm-hmm.
navigating how to, regardless of whatever it is I feel I'm like thinking about, how can I take what God's given me in this season and make it the best it can be, and finding like patience and fulfillment in that too.
Yeah. No, that's good. And I think that seasons is a great word
Mm-hmm.
for it too, that whether it's the 20s or the 30s or the 40s, these decades that do, and sometimes a day feels like that when you're waiting on an answer for what's the career, what should I go here, should I go here? That waiting on God and those seasons, I think one of the things that's really cool, and I appreciate this about you, is that idea that we get to share life together multi-generationally. And it's important to have a 50-year-old perspective or a 40-year-old perspective and a 23-year-old perspective. And I appreciated that about the Wayfarer podcast too, that we had different seasons at that table.
Yeah.
And we were able to see things to talk about those seasons, because the things that are in front of us are unique. But the fact that we're asking God, what are you asking right now?
Yeah.
And how do I discern your voice? And what's the right next step? We're going to be doing that in our 20s, our 30s, our 40s,
Yeah.
our 50s. So developing the ability to do that well and to not feel like we have to do it alone is really something that takes, again, practice. And I think doing it with people of different ages is really good. So I would just say, if you're listening, if there's not somebody in your life 10 years older or 10 years younger, think about that and just say, am I spending real actual time in relationship with somebody who's a decade below or a decade beyond where I'm at today? If not, maybe go find somebody or pray about that, because having that view is really, really important, I think,
Yeah.
on both sides.
Completely. Like I don't know when I heard this saying, but it's like you should have friends that are 5 years younger than you, 5 years older than you, and beyond, because it's to have that wise perspective and then that innocent perspective. It's very important to be seeing that, because a lot of 23-year-olds are dealing with the same thing I'm dealing with. And it's like, it's not that I'm not friends with people who are 23, but it's that wisdom that you're seeking sometimes isn't in the people who are walking in the same line as you. Like, I think asking questions and YouTube is my favorite resource when I'm like flossing at night. Like I'm always looking up different videos, different podcasts, because I think that like seeking out wisdom from people you might not even know. Like most of my like I'm very lucky the fact that I have my parents, Sammy. Can you imagine that?
Sammy.
Yeah. That should be your couple name.
That's right. That's a couple name.
Cammy and Zach. I have like in-person mentors, but I also have a lot of mentors that I've never even met at all, and it would be an honor to meet them. But I think asking for advice is very important because, like I said, I'm not perfect. And if I were to do everything that my subconscious said to do initially and impulsively, that would honestly be a colossal mistake.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's so good. It's interesting to think about YouTube in that context because I think I've always said that like authors become our friends. They're these voices, these people who their story becomes a part of our story. And I love books for that reason. But I think YouTube's the same way. You get to know people, right? Even this podcast, people, I've been listening to those conversations over and over and over, and you're part of them, which is so cool.
Yeah.
I know we've got to be careful about time. Can you believe we just burned through like 45 minutes?
Is it?
I know.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. I feel like I could talk to you like literally all day. Even before this podcast, we were like, okay, we got to get started.
We got to start. Before we wrap up, I got to ask you this though, because I want you to talk to that other 23-year-old person. I think post-college is tough, right? Like when you're nested within a high school context or a college university context, or later in life you have a family context, there's a nest that you exist within that provides some things that are really helpful for flourishing. In that in-between, right out of college, that can be a pretty disruptive time to find good relationship and deep community. So for the person who's 21, 22, 23, just exiting, and they find themselves in that in-between space, what advice would you have for them to find a rich community? What can people do, and maybe what can they not do? Because I think sometimes we assume, well, I will find the right people. If I just go hang out here, I hang out there, I'll just find them. And that's not always true. Yeah. So for that person who feels very much like maybe they're in San Diego or they're in Portland or they're somewhere else, where would you say, hey, start here if you're feeling kind of alone and like you don't have a community yet? What are one or two things that you would say, maybe try this as a way to find your way forward?
Well, I think church is the perfect for like simple, plain, no explanation. Well, I'll explain. But going to church is definitely going to be the best first step, whether you haven't been in 4 years because you just left college, or you have been going and you're not necessarily happy with where you are in your faith life. I think going to church, best first step, and asking questions and not being scared to ask questions, like going up to people who work at the church and asking them if there's any groups that you can join, if you can get involved with church at all. I think that those are great first steps because within that, you're going to meet people who know someone who's also your age, or you'll meet someone who is your age and walking through the same stuff as you are. So I think that's like a perfect first step into that. And I also would say, like, back to the seasons thing, we're all walking, as a post-grad, we all walk different steps. I mean, I have a friend who is going to be living in Spain in a little bit, and she's going to be teaching English. And that's a completely different story than mine, where I'm literally in Tampa and working here. So I think learning to just embrace what God is trying to do in you right now is the best thing, because I have friends who are also engaged and literally going to be married in the next next month. And so there's like, everyone's going after graduation, boom, you are now off on God's like open terrain. Like there's not another, I mean, unless you go for your master's, but like there's not another set of school years that you have to be going on, or there isn't a specific track you have to be on. Like now you are choosing what life you want to lead. And I think just listening in and finding a lot of times of silence and not feeling like you need to go out to the bar for every happy hour with your coworkers, or feeling like you have to go out and do a lot of noise. Like it's fun to do that. Hey, I love it. I did it for Cinco de Mayo on Monday. But I think also knowing like, okay, I'm going to go to mass the next day. I need to find silence again. Like, I need to reflect. You need to say no. I think that's something that I've had to really get good at, is looking at opportunities, because there will be a lot of them post-graduation, seeing new career options, new school options, relationship options, and looking at them for what they are and making almost like a case study, taking out emotion, looking at things logistically and saying, like, will this lead me closer to my vision? Will this lead me closer to what I think God's doing in my heart? And not feeling like you need to do something because society's saying you need to, because the pay's amazing, or because you're going to be moved to this amazing place. Like, if it's not in that long-term vision of, this is going to set my life up for success, for what I want, and that's I think something that a lot of people need to discern, working on that discernment and finding quietness, saying no. Embracing what God's doing in your life right now uniquely.
Yeah.
So.
Isn't that so cool? I thank you for that. That was a great, go to church, right? So good and so simple. And I think we're all becoming much more bold.
Yeah.
We're saying the church isn't perfect. Good grief. We're not asking it to be perfect. We're done with that conversation. We're saying a regular part of recalibrating my life is to practice my faith, not by myself in my own head. So go to church. Second, and find one. If you need help finding one, reach out and we'll help you find one. But go to church. Second, embrace the fact that you're going to be in a unique part of your story. Don't compare it to somebody else's, right? Post-grad life, somebody's working, somebody's getting married, somebody's moving to Spain.
Yeah.
And if you start looking at different people and go, well, I should go to Spain, get married, right? You'll go nuts. So ask, like, what is God doing in my life, right? And then that beautiful thing you said about quieting noise is so important. Just don't try to live with no noise, because we live in a city and we're busy and all the things, but also not constant noise, and be intentional about finding those places of solitude. And you embody all these things in a really incredible way. I've said this for a long time, but Cammie and I are very, very strong on Kathia. We think that God's doing incredible things in and through you, and he's been doing that for a long time. But we've watched your faith grow in the last few years in a really, really beautiful way. So stay close to God, because I'm so glad you had that moment in the chapel to recalibrate, and he shifted you onto a trail that's really important. And I don't know where that'll end up, but keep pursuing him. And thank you for the way that you have been and have been such a big contribution to V3 and to the Wayfarer podcast. We've got a ton of respect for you. Your personality type is actually the one that says you're part 21-year-old, part 91-year-old, right? Like lots of fun and lots of wisdom. And I think that you embody that well. So thanks for hanging out.
Yeah.
Wonderful to have some time.
Thank you for having me.
Tell your family we said hello.
I will. Thank you guys for having me. This is such a blessing.